Class, good day. How is your day going so far? I hope everyone is all good. Okay, despite your busy schedules, I hope you're still taking care of yourselves and also, take rest sometimes. But yeah, by the way, right now, this is another day. Okay, I'm pre-recording this, our topic. It's because last time it was holiday. I think that was our time to be back at our own cities after we voted. Okay, I hope right now you're all set. Please prepare yourselves. Please make yourselves comfortable at your own pace right now or at your own home because right now we are going to tackle another topic. Okay? Yeah, by the way, class, I just have a question. Um, have you heard of the word criticism before? Or have you or yourself did already accepted or um, did someone criticize already or give critics about you, like for example your works or about your talent? Like for example, it says to you now. Um, you're actually good about that, but you need to improve at this aspect. You will need to have this one, improve, or you're actually not really good at it. You need to, um, enhance at the specific part. Have you heard that one already from, from someone you know, or even from the strangers? Okay, we tend to, also when we hear this word, we will think that it's they are criticizing me, right? But yeah, but you know what, class? For giving criticism or criticizing about that, it actually will give you and another side of the coin to improve yourself. Yeah. By the way, that's just a quick questions. Now I actually prepared something for you. As you can see, by the way, are you seeing my screen? Mm-hmm. Okay. By the way, how would you describe the picture? What is your primary or what primarily aspect to look into to consider it is as beautiful or great? This is actually a painting. Most of you, some of you might answer, means it's about the message, okay, how it relates to the society, how it is important, the um, how it communicates the message it want to communicate with its viewers, or maybe miss it's about the colors, how it contemplates to the whole art, the texture, the reason, the technique that has been used, right? So most of us has variety or diverse answers to that because we have different, standard on how to judge or how to consider an artwork as good or as something beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Right now, okay, I do have here questions or they call this one like a puzzle. You just have to open your eyes to see what actually do the words there that we can look to have, or when we try to sometimes the things that we can apply when we are trying to look for consider an art as a good work. Yeah, we have here, correct, we have lines. Yeah, perfect. We have colors. We also have texture for textures. Message, forms. That's correct. And we also have here shapes. Right, good job. That's very correct, guys. And because, yeah, all of this could be applied or could be seen in an artwork. Because our topic for today would be Art criticism, valuing contemporary art. So is here is our learning goals. You have to explain and identify the philosophical positions in art criticism. You have to differentiate and discuss the essential aspects of art appreciation and art criticism through their own words, displays appreciation through various arts, and practice formal art criticism, analyze and evaluate original art following the questions of the four-step process, and apply the four-step process in the critique of selected contemporary artworks or pieces. So all of this, um, during our discussions, during our elaboration of the topic, you will know of this one. Okay, we will be going to meet this one, right? Now, let's know first what is art criticism. So, when we say art criticism class, it is the process of studying, appreciating, and evaluating art, which involves critical thinking. So, meaning, you just not look into the artwork and says, "Oh, it's beautiful. It's about this. It needs improvement." But as an art critic, you will need to use your critical thinking. You need to study the art. You just need, okay. So also there will be appreciation, of course, because every art is beautiful. But at the same time, you will going to evaluate the art. Okay? It is an organized approach in studying work of art. You will need to like follow a step process for you to evaluate an art or to make judgment on a specific art. So most, okay, art criticism, it helps us to understand the full meaning of words. And so as we know, it is an organized approach in studying work of art. So it involves critical thinking wherein you explore the art. Okay, you question. You have a lot of questions there to evaluate the art and you discover its true meaning. So when we say art criticism class, particularly criticism, we tend to think negative comments or statement, right? Yet apparently, it's also denoting positive remarks or observations. Like for example, critics that appear on TVs or YouTubes, such as reviews about new movies, plays, books, music, and many other more, wherein they give their own assessment. So you may not always, okay, agree with their opinions because your criteria or judgment may be very different from those of other or professional critic. Diba? So we really have different, you know, um, judgment or criteria. For example, your friend says, um, you know what, that, that guy is handsome, but your other friend will say, no, I think he's not. He's not handsome. So at that example, you would realize now, yeah, we really have different, standard in judging one's beauty. So it's also like on art criticism or in any art piece or artworks. One might say, or one critic might say that it is actually the meaning of this. Okay? It is great because of this, but the other critic would say no, it's not like that. Actually, it is like this. So it would depending on the approach that the critic will be using. Okay, so without the benefit of your interpretation, works of art are generally silent. They cannot explain to you what they really mean at instant. So you, as a viewer, as a critic, you are the one who would gonna interpret and give meaning to the art. Okay? Well, speaking of that, we will also Alright, so speaking of that, we are going to know about the philosophical positions in art criticism, or likely class, it's like an approach how you're going to give critique on that specific art forms. Okay, it's how you are, it's your approach. Okay, so let's know what are the positions in art criticism. Okay, now we have first formal criticism. When we say formal criticism or class, it's based upon the static assessment of artworks that gives priority to such formal elements as line, shapes, and color at the expense of representational elements involved with narrative matter and symbols. So from the word itself, formal. Okay, from the word itself, formal, meaning the critic on this one, okay, the critics is giving, assessment through what is visible on the eyes of that viewer or that critic. So it describes the critical position that the most important aspect of a work of art is its form. So the way it is made, so it is purely on visual aspects rather than its relationship to the world. So judging, so you will judge the art solely for its composition, such as the line, the shapes, the color, or also the rhythm, okay, the symmetry, okay, and also the texture and composition or the flow. So it's all the concepts when we all use when we try to describe beautiful. So something that you can see in your eyes, diba? The texture, the color of the artwork. Or for example, sa theater class, you'd have like for example the movement of the actors, the background, the music, or um no how it relates to um the theater or the topic of the theater. So that's it. That's a formal criticism. Remember that when we say formal criticism, it's on aesthetic assessments. It's purely on visual aspects, like for example the lines, the shapes, and the colors on how it contemplates to the whole art. Okay, that's formal criticism. Now let's go on. Alright, so now we are going to have the ideological critics or the criticism. So for ideological critics class or criticism, it's actually originated from writings of Karl Marx. Have you known already Karl Marx or Marxism? So Karl Marx was actually been prominent for Marxism. So when we say Marxism, it was a social, political, and economic theory focuses on the struggle between capitalist and the working class. Now, okay, it is where it is based. Now, for ideological critics class, they hold or they believe that all art is created to support some political agenda, cultural structure, economic hierarchy, or class struggle. So basically, class ideological critics or relating the art to society, to what is happening in the society, particularly, for example, the struggle of um, the people and that society. So it is most concerned with the relationship between art and structures of power. It infers that art is embedded in a social, economic, and political structure that determines its final meaning. So for the ideological criticism class, you know, um, they are getting the meaning of that part, that certain artwork, okay, they from the society or relating from the society, what is happening in the society. They believe that there is something in that artwork or that specific, for example, kind of literature, or for example that music. There is an embedded, okay, message to what is happening, or also it tries to communicate on what is going on the society or on on the structures or the political agenda or cultural structure of that certain society. So ideological criticism, it translates art and artifacts as symbols that reflect political ideals and version of reality over another. So that's ideological criticism or critics, as they hold that it is or in you know artifacts or artworks have embedded a meaning of what is happening on the society or relating to the society. Okay, that's ideological criticism. Okay, now let's move on to another slide. Okay, now we have psychoanalytic criticism, or from the word itself, psychoanalytic. Is it something familiar with you? Okay, it's actually employed or prominent for Sigmund Freud. So he employed the first criticism or psychoanalytic criticism. It is the study of art who are product of individuals shaped by their pasts, their unconscious urges, and their social histories. For psychoanalytic criticism class, as they approach in getting the meaning or interpreting the meaning of that certain artwork, they were going to look back to the past or to the history of the artist or the author. They are going to kanang study the background or the milieu of that certain author or artist so that they could better understand the meaning of that certain artwork, or for example kanang literature, okay, or diba, like movies or a film or a book, okay, for psychoanalytic criticism, so that they would understand the meaning more, they would relate that one to the milieu or the background or the past of the author or the artist, so shaped by their past. Okay, so for example, it is concerned with the interaction between conscious and conscious. So, like for example, class, here this one. So Cheryl had grown up in an abusive home and couldn't wait to get to college to escape from her parents. She met some wonderful people at school, but it took her a long time to develop close friendships because of the trust issues she had developed as a child and teenager. So for this one, for the analytic theory, they had, as you can see, na it also because of the past. That's why what is happening this one and the present. So that's how psychoanalytic criticism works. They look onto the the past of the artist to understand the meaning of that present artwork right now. Okay, great. Now, okay, now let's move on to our next um, position for art criticism. We have structuralism. It holds that in order to understand a work of art, one must study the structure of art and the complex interrelationship of all its parts that produce as a whole. So for structuralism class, they believe that for us to understand the meaning of the artwork more, we will need to not just look onto the past of the author or its background, but also we would also look how it relates to the society, um, its culture, and also the subject or the object itself. You will need to look on that one. Structuralist critics analyze material by examining underlying structures. So, for example, sa literature, sa characterization or plot, and attempted to show how these patterns were universal and could thus be used to develop general conclusions about both individuals' works and the systems from which they emerge. So for structuralist class, they are more on for universal truths or facts. to understand the meaning. Okay? So the analysis or criticism that uses structuralist approach analyzes patterns, the narrative operations, the codes of operation to interpret the artworks or the text and the culture from where it emerges, exploring underlying structures that make the creation of meaning possible. So for structuralism class, they believe that things cannot be understood in isolation or by one only certain, a focus, but it had to be seen in the context of larger structures that they are part of. So sa all that interconnect with the art forms or artwork, you will need to study on that to create or to interpret its correct meaning. That's for structuralism. Okay? And then let's have the last, the other positions of art criticism. Now we have post-structuralism, and for post-structuralism, they believe that artwork does not only have one meaning, but rather in multiple meanings because every viewer approaches the work in varying perspectives. So unlike from structuralism plus, now they really have to study all that interrelated structure so that you would, you would achieve its really or true meaning. For post-structuralism, they believe now we do have different meaning. We do interpret um, artwork, okay, differently. So we have varying perspectives. Okay, because especially if that's in a different time, if that's in a different society or culture, um, that would be interpreted as also differently. So they believe that in order to understand something, it was necessary to study not only the subject itself but also the system of knowledge since it can be misinterpreted. So yeah, that's how the post-structuralism works. So it's like, or it is something like opposing structuralism, right? So it builds from the insight of structuralism and it holds all meaning to be fluid rather than universal and predictable. So really, they really need to study that certain artwork or piece to create in or to understand its true meaning, but not universal meaning, as per structuralism. Okay. All right. So now let's move on to another um, positions. Now let's have feminist criticism. So for feminist criticism class, they're concerned with the oppression of groups, especially women, in given society. Feminism advocates equal social, political, and economic rights for all genders, including LGBTQ. So I know for sure you're all familiar with feminism already, or feminists, right? So we think that it's all about women, but right now for art criticism, it includes all genders, especially also the LGBTQ. So for feminist criticism class, this approach is actually a movement as the critical examination of both visual representations of women in art and art produced by women. It continues to be a major field of art criticism. So for feminist criticism class, the critics of this one, they are trying to give meaning or interpret the meaning of how women are being represented in that certain artwork or certain piece. Like for example, in literature, they would analyze or they will give critique on how women, like for example, being oppressed or how women did gain their powerful you know, powerful. Um, and the powerful stand. Also, for it applies to all other genders as well. So for these critics, they are trying to see, or they're going to criticize or um, give critics on how genders are being represented, depicted or showed, or also um, exposed on that certain art piece or art form. Okay. Um, so they are really focused on how they are presented, for example, in social, in political, in economic rights. So that's the focus for the feminist critics or in feminist criticism. Okay. Now we also have post-colonial criticism. So for post-colonial criticism class, they assume that unique perspectives on the art and politics of colonialism, which is concerned with art produced by colonial powers and works produced by those who were colonialized. So for this one, critics are actually going to examine those who artworks or piece from or after or during colonialism. These artworks are being critic or provide. Okay, it's actually examined and studied by the post-colonial critics. So, because it analyzes and responds to the cultural legacies of colonialism and the human consequences of controlling a country in order to exploit the native people and their land. So, you'd look for an art piece or art form class that would, explain or also, um, represent how the native people were being exploited in their own land, or on also what happening during the colonialism and after colonialism. Okay, so they're focused on that one for post-colonial criticism, right? Then, all right, we also have here the the last one, phenomenological criticism. So for phenomenological criticism class, phenomenology is a philosophy of experience. For phenomenology, the ultimate source of all meaning and value is the lived experiences of human being. So for this one, so it holds that you, the perceiving subject, engaged with an artwork. Ultimately, this interaction produces you in an intellectual and emotional response based on your ideas, your personal taste, experiences, and history. So you might be immediately aware of some of these factors while others look at the edges of your consciousness. You may have your own meaning for a work of art. In studying art, you learn about yourself. So for this criticism class or for this approach, you will be basing your critics from your own experience. Okay, using your intellectual, of course, the emotional response based on your experiences, your history, and from the word itself, phenomenon, which is something observable and something which is true or fact. So any experience you can any valued experience that you can apply would be also used to this approach. So meaning also that one, so it would be very different now. Like for example, you would be giving critic on this art forms right now, and then after 10 years, since you already have like different experiences, story, or you already have different meanings to also underworld, you would have a different meaning as well. Okay, you will look back to how you practiced before on that specific art forms, and you will have a different meaning na on, or giving critic on that same art form as well after 10 years. That's phenomenological criticism based on your experiences, okay, or I own ideas. And also, don't forget that your interpretation may differ from everyone else's. Because as we mentioned, we have different standard in how we judge or consider an artwork um, something amazing or great. Okay? So you, as I said, meaning may shift as you change in a work of art may seem very, very different to you now than it did, or it did a few years ago. Okay, so that's a phenomenological criticism. Okay, so that's it. And now we are going to move on, which is the art criticism as a four-step process. So right now, because we are going to know the process and how we are going to give a critique on a specific art forms. Okay, so let's know how we were going to do that. Now, first, the first process is description. During this step, you collect information about the subject of this artwork without the value, judgment, or interpretation. So from the word itself, class, description, or describe. You are just going to describe the art or that specific art form, provide its important details. Okay, you just have to describe the artwork. Okay, just simple describe. So there is the guiding questions. What do I what do I see? What is the subject of this work? So for description, like for example, so artwork, or art or painting, you will have to ask what is the subject of this work. Or for literature, you'll just have to summarize. You give summarization or the important characters and that certain literature or film that you wanted to give critique. Okay, that's for description. And then we have here the next, which is analysis. For analysis class, it's the second step. So this is your second paragraph. Okay, this step deals with works, compositions, or formal qualities. So for analysis, you are going to examine, you're going to study the techniques, the styles of the author or the artist. So for example, sa artwork or sa painting, like is the artist using cubism, or for literature is the artist employing foreshadowing or flashbacking method or technique. So yeah, you'll study the guiding questions for that. How is the work organized? How did the artist do it? You will be examining, you will be studying the artist, the content of the work, the composition, and how the artist presented his or her a certain piece. Okay, how have the principal organized the elements? Right, so that's for analysis. And then we also have here the third paragraph or the third step, which is interpretation. So I know for sure it's one of the easiest thing for you, or most likely you love, since this step focuses on the content of the work. So from the word interpret, you're going to examine what is the artist trying to communicate. What is the message of this artwork communicating to you? What evidences inside or outside the artwork supports your interpretation? So for you will, in this one, in interpreting, so you will first study all the content on the artist, okay, the piece. Then after that, okay, you would also okay you can use the positions of art criticisms, like for example I'm using the psychoanalytic criticism. Okay, you would also study the the author or the artist's background, so that you can interpret the meaning correctly, or to understand the piece more, so that you can interpret accurately what is the artist trying to communicate with you, or with that certain art piece or artwork. Okay, so that's for interpretation. own meaning, you how you understand, or also by examining, by studying how is that specific art form is giving, or I mean what is the message that that art form or that piece or work is trying to communicate with its viewers or readers. That's for interpretation. And the last one for your four-step process for art criticism. Okay, which is your fourth paragraph. That's for judgment. So you tell whether the artwork you think the artwork is successful or not. Judging a piece of work means giving a rank in relation to other works and establishing its originality among body of works. So it is wherein you're going to ask yourself, is the work of art successful? Is it a good art? Okay, is it something that's related to society as a whole? Okay, what evidences inside or outside the artwork relates to each criterion? So basically, it is your own judgment, your own opinion, but also with after you study or it's wherein you express your opinion about the success of the work. So your opinion is based on, however, what you discovered in the description, analysis, and interpretation. So it's likely kanang wrap up with judgment. Okay, so this is a carefully thought out decision in which you make a personal decision about an artwork's success or lack of success. Okay, it also applied different philosophical positions as we have that discussed earlier. So, judging a piece of work means giving it a rank in relation to other works and establishing its originality among a body of works. So that's how you can judge um a certain artwork, right? So yeah, that's it. And also, yeah, by the way, for this one, guys, I have posted in your LMS, there is an art form or art worksheet there that you can use. Okay, that could be your guide in giving your credit, or you can also try to find that one online resources, as long as it's reliable. That could be fine. Okay, so do you have questions? Now, if none, I do have questions. Here, let's just have a quick recap. So let's know. And it critiques the art based on the artist's past or milieu to understand the meaning more. So that's correct. That's psychoanalytic criticism. Next, it established criticism grounded on visible elements of the art. For example, its line and colors. Yep, that's correct. Great. Formalism criticism. It translates art and artifacts as symbols that reflect economic and political ideals. That's correct. Ideological criticism. Perfect. Now let's move on to the process. Okay, the step process in giving art criticism. It is where you describe. It is where you summarize or describe the art. Correct description. The step focuses on the content of the work and what is the artist trying to communicate. Correct interpretation. This step deals with work's compositions or formal qualities. Alright, perfect. That's analysis. Okay, you're all set now. You know what are you going to do for giving criticism in an art or art criticism. So let's have our asynchronous activity. Okay, for our asynchronous activity class, it's already posted in our LMS. Please do your quiz. That would be until midnight. Then you will also have a written test. This is by member of 3. You can choose your own members of 3. And then there is a guiding questions there. All you have to do is to answer that one within, I think that would be 2 to 3 sentences only. Okay, so you just download the file there so that you can further check the instructions and how you can answer your written test, and also
For your application, supplemental and performance tests, all you have to do is to do to make a video presentation. So I already posted the rubric as well and the instruction. But for this, it would be the same group. You just have to select your own art piece or artwork, and then you are going to give your art criticism by group. So after that, you'll have to make a video. Either you can you can have it creatively, like for example news blogging, or I mean use interviews by vlogging or making, okay, or interviews. So yeah, that's how you can do your video presentation to creatively present your art criticism, okay, not just on writing. Right, so if you by the way, if you have questions, you can always chat me through our GC, or you can also direct message me, okay. All right, so yeah, by the way, thank you so much for listening, class. Thank you so much for attending our class for today, and I hope you're all good, and I hope you're all right. Have a wonderful and amazing day. Bye for now, class.